Welcome to the cold.
Yeah, sorry to keep you guys out here that long.
Well, that was an interesting experience.
It was.
The user interface is a little clunky at first, but what I saw that bothered me were the names of at least 6 men that have been redacted that are likely incriminated by their inclusion in these files. So that's the first thing that I saw. It took some digging to find them. Then I'll let you talk about what you saw.
Well, and we discussed that. I mean, there are 6 men, some of them with their photographs that have been redacted, and there's no explanation why those people were redacted. And Thomas discovered it through his MIT logic with some of the searches. But, you know, that's really concerning. I think there are 2 other points. One is some of the internet concern about some of the more sensational emails. I mean, I do think it's important to recognize that some of the senders on that are women, and so some of the redactions may be appropriate, some may not be appropriate. We need to look at that. But just because there's an email out there, it doesn't mean that there's necessarily an improper redaction. The bigger concern is these 6 individuals. I will say that the staff was very professional in allowing us to do the searches. Our bigger concern is that there's still a lot that's redacted. Even in what we're seeing redacted versions. I thought we were supposed to see the unredacted versions, and that's because the documents produced to justice from the FBI, from the grand jury, was redacted when they got it. So we kept doing the searches for the unredacted information. It's the identical redactions that they have. Now, I don't think that's nefarious on the career attorneys that were reviewing it, but they obviously haven't gotten the production because our law says that the FBI and the original grand jury needs to be unredacted.
Right. The U.S. attorneys and the FBI are compelled, as well as the DOJ, and the DOJ was responsible for this document production, and they just produced documents that have been given to them from the FBI, the 302 forms, for instance, which need to be unredacted. There was one other thing that definitely needs to be addressed. Some of these files have been taken down, like the DOJ produced them, and for some reason they took them down. Maybe they decided that victims' names were in there and that they needed further redactions. But those documents not only haven't been put back up on the site with the appropriate redactions, they were not available to us to search. As far as I could tell, we couldn't search the documents that had been taken off the internet.
Can you share with us the name of the 6 men that you identified?
I probably should do that from the floor or in a committee hearing.
And look, they should be releasing these documents. We have many avenues where we can compel that legally. Maybe they've done it out of oversight. I don't know. I don't believe that. But, you know, they should be releasing those documents, and our hope is to get them to do that. And then in some of the redactions, they need to be very careful in whether that was a survivor or not. Just because, for example, someone is female doesn't necessarily mean they're survivors. And it seemed like they blanket redacted anyone who was a female from my review.
Yeah, I would like to give the DOJ a chance to say they made a mistake and over-redacted and let them unredact those men's names. That would probably be the best way to do it.
All right, folks, buckle up, because what you just watched should anger every American who still believes in equal justice under the law. I just finished watching Forbes Breaking news video where Congressman Thomas Massie and Congressman Khanna held a press briefing after reviewing what they were told were unredacted Epstein files. And let me tell you right now, that was a lie by omission. What Massie and Khanna just confirmed is something many of us on the right have been saying for years. There are 2 justice systems in America, one for regular people and one for the rich, powerful, and politically protected. They were brought into the DOJ expecting transparency. What they got instead was a digital shell game, clunky interfaces, missing documents, pulled files, and names blacked out that legally should not be blacked out. And here's the most explosive part. In just 2 hours, Thomas Massie says he found at least 6 men whose names were redacted men who appear to be implicated by the files themselves. 6 men in 2 hours. Let that sink in.
Checking their homework. They need to do a little more homework. There are 6 men. We went in there for 2 hours. There's millions of files, right? And in a couple of hours, we found 6 men whose names have been redacted who are implicated in the way that the files are presented.
Yeah,
What's your message to Pam Bondi after what you saw today?
Need to do a little more work. And we'll see her at the Judiciary Committee here in a couple days.
At the very least, these 6 men, maybe she can make public. I mean, we're happy to provide the information to them, and they should do that. Look, there's some of the effort, because there were a lot of career attorneys on there. There's some redactions that were appropriate, some, for protect the survivors. And some of the most sensational things out on the internet, there may have been appropriate redaction. So, for Thomas and me, it's always been about the facts. And our biggest concern is what was redacted before it even came to the Justice Department. I mean, the reality is that the most important things, the 302 files and some of the information on the prosecution memos, it's unclear that those redactions happened here. We saw a lot of files that already were redacted. And then, of course, they have been protecting some of these men. Maybe it was not intentionally, but the law is very clear. They need to comply with the law.
And finally, the documents that they put up and decided for one reason or another they had to take back down, I was hoping to see those here. They didn't appear to be in the database that we were able to search. Those ostensibly are wholly redacted files now. We know they exist. They published them for a brief period of time and pulled them back. They need to answer to us as to do they intend to redact those files and put them back up and put them in the database so that we can search them and see if it was appropriate to take them back down from the website.
Are these men U.S. citizens? What fields do they work in? Is it finance? Is it political?
At least one is a U.S. citizen. At least one is a foreigner. And the other 3 or 4 have names. I'm not sure if they're foreign or U.S.
And which field do they work in? Is it finance, banking, political?
One is pretty high up in the foreign government.
And some are there. One of the others is a pretty prominent individual. But I think that the point is that these 6 are just what we found in 2 hours of a review of the files that aren't redacted. The broader issue is why so many of the files they're getting are redacted in the first place. And until that becomes unredacted, the main things that they're sending to the career attorneys to review, I don't think we're going to have full compliance with the law or get to the question that most Americans want to know. Who were the rich and powerful people who went to this island? Did they rape underage girls? Did they know that underage girls were being paraded around? And after seeing this, I don't blame the U.S. attorneys, the assistant U.S. attorneys reviewing it. If they're reviewing redacted material, what are they supposed to do? But they're getting, it seems like, material that's already been redacted.
Congressman Raskin also viewed these materials earlier, and he said that he saw President Trump's name redacted, he saw Lee Wexner's name redacted. Did you see President Trump's name redacted, Lee Wexner's name redacted? Can you share anything about that?
I didn't put Donald Trump in the search engine, so I couldn't tell you.
Did you
Why
see
not?
who wrote the email about the little girl who was, quote, a little naughty?
I did, and that was a woman that wrote that. And so it may be proper to redact it, and it may not be. I don't know. It seems like part of their algorithm for redaction was just to redact every woman in there, pretty much.
Yeah.
So we can't parse if the person who sent that was a victim or not.
Look, none of this is designed to be a witch hunt. If just because someone may be in the files doesn't mean that they're guilty. But there are very powerful people who raped these underage girls. It wasn't just Epstein and Maxwell, or showed up to the island, or showed up to the ranch, or showed up to the home, knowing underage girls were being paraded around, and some of the sickening stuff in there about the violence. And what we want to do is have the investigation to get to those people, to answer those questions. Not to say that every internet rumor about some email is going to be true. And like I said, in some of the cases, the redactions may have been appropriate. But for Thomas and me, it's never been about getting Donald Trump or getting Bill Clinton or scoring political points or trying to destroy people's reputations. It's about actually getting justice for these survivors.
Do either of you plan to read the 6 names on the House floor?
I think we need to give the DOJ a chance to go back through and correct their mistakes.
How long do they have to do that? How long do they have to redact these files?
They're already breaking the law. Look, they're way past the deadline. And the reason they gave for taking so much time is so they wouldn't release victims' information. But in fact, they've released all kinds of victims' information. So the problem here is not the deadline. The problem is they need to go back. They need to themselves check their own homework or have somebody else check it. And as Rose said, they need to go to the U.S. attorneys and the FBI, who are compelled by the legislation directly to produce that material to them unredacted.
And I think, look, we could have brought contempt or impeachment weeks ago, but our interest is in actually getting the information out. And as a result of the strategy we've been pursuing, this is the largest release of the Epstein files in history. Now, it's not enough, but it has exposed people in the highest levels in technology, in finance, in real estate. It has exposed the establishment and monarchies in other countries. So our push is, how do we expose this and have accountability, not how do we score political points or have retribution.
Now, the media wants to distract you with process talk, user interfaces, algorithms, technical issues. No, this is not a tech problem. This is a cover-up problem. These weren't random redactions. These were specific men, some with photographs, some tied to foreign governments, finance, and elite power circles, and there was no lawful explanation for why their names were hidden. And remember this, the law is clear. Unless the information is classified or directly identifies a victim, it must be unredacted. So, why are male names alleged perpetrators still blacked out? Massie and Khanna confirmed something even more disturbing. Many of the most critical documents, including FBI 302 interview forms, were already redacted before the DOJ even reviewed them, which means this didn't start at the DOJ. It started at the FBI and the grand jury level. Ask yourself this. If the DOJ is reviewing pre-redacted material, how can there ever be accountability? The career attorneys didn't fail here. The system above them did. And then comes the part that should set off alarm bells for everyone watching. Some Epstein documents were published online, then quietly taken down, gone, unavailable, not searchable. Why? If the excuse is protecting victims, then where are the corrected versions? Why weren't those files restored with proper redactions? You don't accidentally pull documents of this magnitude and forget to put them back. That's not incompetence. That's intent. Now here's where I'll give credit where it's due. Both Massie and Khanna were crystal clear. This is not about Donald Trump. This is not about Bill Clinton. This is not about scoring political points. And as a right-wing patriot, I respect that. Because real conservatives don't defend predators, we defend justice. Being named in a file doesn't mean guilt, but being protected from scrutiny does mean corruption. The American people deserve to know who went to the island, who knew underage girls were being trafficked, who looked the other way, and who actively participated. Khanna made a point that even many conservatives will agree with. Look at other countries. British officials are answering questions. Monarchies are issuing statements. Elites are being forced into the sunlight. And here in America, silence, redactions, delays, excuses. That is unacceptable. If a cabinet member, billionaire, financier, tech executive, or foreign official was involved, they should be dragged in front of Congress, regardless of party. No sacred cows. No immunity for power. This is bigger than Epstein. This is about whether America still believes that the law applies to everyone. Power does not erase guilt. Victims matter more than reputations. Right now, the government is failing that test. And Massie said it plainly. They could have already moved toward contempt or impeachment. They didn't because their goal isn't revenge. Their goal is truth. Let me be very clear as a right-wing patriot. I don't care if the names are Republican or Democrat. I don't care if they're American or foreign. I don't care how rich or connected they are. If they raped children, enabled trafficking, or knowingly stood by, they deserve exposure, prosecution, and punishment. Anything less is a betrayal of the American people. If you believe in equal justice, if you believe power should never protect evil, if you believe the Epstein cover-up must yendi, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video everywhere, because sunlight is the enemy of corruption, and the truth is coming, whether the elites like it or not.